Okay, so now it's time to look at HTML in a little bit more detail, because now you know how to apply the concept of a full stack application, but I think it's important to have a good understanding of each of the technologies, as well as just a basic understanding of their relationship. So let's have a look at the HTML syntax from right from the beginning. So we'll go over a few of the basics, which I'm sure you understand by now, but are still important. So we'll create a new file. That's index. Let's create a file. We'll save it as I'll save it as a PHP file, but we won't include any PHP, but just to have consistency in the folders. Let's call it HTML example. Save. Okay, great. HTML example dot PHP. Okay. Okay, so I've told you this quite a few times, but the first thing that you find in a HTML document is the doc type. So you put the exclamation mark and then in large letters doc type. And then you specify the kind of file. This is an HTML file. Sometimes you'll be writing XHTML files or XML files, and you'll have to specify that up here. So all the types of files like HTML need to be specified. The doc type needs to be specified, and in this case it's HTML. Then you need to specify HTML, and all these tags that I'm writing, as you see, start with these two arrows, and that is what signifies HTML tag. Okay, so the HTML tag is the one that embodies everything in the page, and this we can bring it down, and then all the content will find itself in the middle. Then you have the head, and then you close the head as well. And the head will contain the metadata about the site. So it's where you link the JavaScript, it's where you link the CSS files, it's where you can write the style in the sheet. You can write scripts inside this sheet here instead of having to link them. So all the metadata that won't get displayed on the page will be written in between here. So right now we don't need anything there, but it's good to know. And then you have the body, and the body is where all the content of the page is going to be found. I'm sure you have picked up all of this on the way to here, but this is just going over a bit. So the body contains all the content, and then within this you'll have all the different tags. So one of the most important tags is the header tag, and the header tag is specified by H and followed by a number. So H1, and then it goes down to H6, and it goes down in number as the font becomes smaller and less bold. So it just means the importance of the header decreases. So in a site you might have one big header at the top of the site, so with the title, so my website, H1, and that will be a huge, I mean not that huge, but a big header. And then if you put an H2, you can see that it will already be getting smaller. H1, 2. You see, it's much smaller, and it can go down to H6. So I'll show you H3. Third. Okay, so you see how it works. And headers are very important because right now you might not be thinking of it, but when you put the site online, the way people are going to see it is by searching in Google for other things, and then they happen to come across your website if you don't advertise it or anything. And the search engine like Google will use the content in these H1, these headers, to see if your website is going to be indexed higher up or lower down. So the headers are very important, and so these H tags are important to use. So when you want to have a big title, don't just write a div and then style it in CSS to make it bigger, but actually use the H1 if it describes something in your site that is important. Because otherwise, the search engine might just not ignore it, and then your site will appear low down in the page. So that's very important. So another important tag to understand is the P tag, and this represents a paragraph. So again, you close it with the slash, and you open it with no slash, but still with the two little arrows. And let's get some text. Let's see, lorem ipsum. Where is it? Just a bit of this. This is just random text that you can use to represent text. And you can see that there's no formatting whatsoever. So even if you do 2 line breaks here in the HTML, the browser will completely ignore it and just display it as it is. So even though it's a paragraph just means that it's separate. It doesn't mean that any formatting will happen within it. So to have formatting within it, you need to use this thing called break. So the line break. And this is a tag that does not close. So if, let's say we want to have 2 line breaks there, then it will jump to the next line and have it as, so if you want to have a poem, you need to have this line break. You can't just display it all as a paragraph, because it will just completely ignore it. Another option that you can use slightly to the same extent is to use pre, and pre just represents pre-formatted text. So basically whatever you write in the editor is going to be displayed. So if you put it like that, it'll display it in a slightly different font, but it will pre-format it. So if you're putting a quote or something that is normally formatted in a way, or as a poem again, this is a good way to do it, because you don't need to put any breaks, and you can write it exactly the way that it will come out, and that's very useful. Okay, but moving on, the next important one to know is the link, and the link is represented by A. Don't ask me why, because A doesn't have anything to do with the word link, but the A is the tag, and again you have to close it with A, and inside you just put the name of, let's say we want to have a link to this website here about lorem ipsum, so lipsum. You put the href, if you remember from linking style sheets, and that just means the link that it will send you to, and then the link, so what you're going to click on. So lorem ipsum, and there you have a little link, and so when you click that, it will send you to the page, and you can click on it left and click in new tab. And one thing that you can do with links to make it open automatically in a new tab is to put just the attribute target and then underscore blank, which is quite useful. Many users get annoyed if they click on a link and it sends them away from the page that maybe took them a while to load up. So if you click on this, it will send you to a new tab, and it won't annoy the user as much. So that's important to know. Then one big part of websites that we haven't really touched upon at all yet is images, because especially in modern websites, images make a huge difference to what the user gets out of a website. Many backgrounds are made of images, so the image tag in HTML is just image, and then the attribute to get the link of the image, you can get one online, is source. So if we want to get an image of Paris, a bit cliche, let's get something like that. So then I can copy the link and that's the link to the image. So on the website it should display the image, but it doesn't. Copy image address, because the link address will just copy the link of the page. So if you copy the image address, it will copy the actual address of the image, which one could open. There we go. And there you have it. So this is an image that you can open in the website, and then this can be put as a background, or it can as a thumbnail. You know, users can upload images often in websites, and then this can be displayed as a thumbnail. And one important attribute to have in the image tag is the alt tag. And alt is basically if the browser, or there's some problem where the image doesn't work, doesn't load, instead of just displaying nothing and that little error sign, the alt will you can put a little message that will describe the image. So I can say Paris fall. So let's say I put a mistake in here. It will describe the image even though it doesn't load. And yeah, so the image is quite important, and you can also specify the width and height. I normally don't like to do this. I like to do it all in CSS, because it can mess up with the settings if you specify it. But one could say width 200 pixels, and then it will specify exactly that. Or if you put 100%, it should the width will cover the whole length of the browser. So you can do that in there. I really prefer to use an external style sheet with the CSS, because then you can have much more control, but that's an option still. Okay, one more very important tag that I already showed you, is the button tag. And this, for social media websites or any dynamic website, is incredibly important. And so you put button and click me. And HTML will pre-style it to look like a button that can be pressed. So you click that, and it will react when you click it. Obviously, it looks absolutely terrible. You normally would style it with CSS to a great extent, and we'll cover that in the CSS tutorial later. But it's just good to know that the button works. Another option, if you want to have a button but inside a form, a button will work as well. But you can say input, if you remember the input tag. Put input type button, and then value, click me. And so that will give you the same result. And you can also put input type submit if you're inside a form, and that will again act as a button. So yeah, these are the real basic tags that are very important to know. The header, the paragraph, there are really, I'm not joking, but thousands of different kinds of tags. But you'll find that you're gonna need quite few in the end. Um, we might go through a few more and cover some more important attributes in the forms and in headings and everything like that. But for now, you should be understanding the basics very well.